My name is Kyle Gatlin. I am one of the pastors here, and I got two kids. I got Sterling, born in '94, and my daughter was born in '97. And just a year and a half ago, August of 2020, my first grandson was born, but he was born up at Grandview Hospital in Birmingham, and that was in the middle of everything. So we couldn't go in the hospital. We couldn't see anybody till after they got home. So that was a little bit different. Our next child, our son and his wife, are having another child end of January or 1st February, whenever Wells decides to come into this world. Be at the Flowers Hospital, we hope that will be a little bit different experience that they will have there, and to have family a little bit closer by, may be able to be there a little bit quicker after the birth, because the hospitals today have gone to those birthing suites, right? Even when our kids were born, both of them, we had the birthing suite where both of our kids were born. Two different hospitals, but still the same principle. And I understand it, right? I understand it. Now, a birthing suite is either the worst thing or the best thing, depending on how you look at it, right? The idea is that you keep the mom in one place. So she checks in, maybe everything's scheduled and all this other stuff. She checks in and she's comfortable in this big old room, and she's in that room, and then they start the drip or whatever. She's right there all during the labor and then the delivery, and then after the delivery, still just stay there. It's just all in this huge room, plenty of room. You can have all the family you want in there, right? You can have just, well, maybe not, but the idea is to lower the stress, That works great unless you have a dad who can't stand the sight of blood. That works great. Or you have a dad that can't stand of a person writhing in pain. But this reminds me of something. I'm sure there's a few of you that attend a worship service, you watch online or whatever, and at the end of that time, you're going, what did I just get out of that? Did I get anything? Did I learn anything today? Anything new? Anything relevant for me? Some of you might have one of those days where you go, I got nothing out of this. Well, today is not that day. Today is not that. I'm going to give you something that you can use. Something that you will never forget. Because I'm going to give you the top 10 things not to say in a birthing suite. And I have them right here in my hand. All the way from our home offices in Hurt, Virginia, or Placentia, California, I have the top 10 list of things not to say in a birthing suite. Number 10, what's that smell? Number 9, you must be so glad you didn't use anything. Okay. 8, gosh, it's taking so long. Okay. Number 7, should I take photos? Okay. Number 6, Ben, hope you didn't say this. Am I the only one grossed out here? So, okay, no, okay. Number 5, no way it hurts so much. No, okay. Number 4, Ben, you better not have said this. Our baby looks like a booger. Okay. Okay. Or number 3, you don't want this one either. It's not as beautiful as they say it is. Okay, no, don't want to say that. And I'm sure this one we've probably, more of us said more than often than we choose to admit. Is it okay if I quickly check the score of the game? Okay. And the number 1 thing you should not say in a birthing suite, don't worry, it'll be so much easier the second time. All right. So, okay. Yeah, don't say those. Don't say those. So now, actually, this idea of the birthing suite is sort of more current and new. I mean, old. It's old. The newness for us is the hospital room and surgery stuff, because when you look at the history, when we became industrialized and we started building hospitals, we somehow got this idea that, hey, let's put this woman in one of the most wonderful times in her life. Let's put her in a sterile room with a bunch of people she doesn't know, all in masks, and say, hey, congratulations, right? That's what we had done for a while. You look at the 50s and 60s TV shows, you can get that, maybe even into the 70s. But the idea of the birthing suite has been around forever. Forever, because the birthing suite was where? In your home or in someone else's home. Now, in case you didn't know, we are getting ready to celebrate a birth. Did y'all realize that? We're celebrating a birth on December 25th, the birth of Christ. And actually, the birth of Christ happened in a birthing suite, just not one that you are thinking of like we do today. Now, when you start digging into the birth of Christ and literally looking at his birthing suite, I want you to understand that the way we've traditionally looked at it may not be entirely accurate. It may be a little something we hadn't noticed before, because everything that we have seen reenacted at church plays or even on TV and stuff like this is the traditional interpretation as it pertains to Luke 2 and some older translations of the Bible. Like the NRSV puts it this way. In those days, a decree went out from Emperor Augustus that all the world should be registered. This was the first registration was taken while Quirinius was governor of Syria. All went to their own towns to be registered. Joseph also went from the town of Nazareth in Galilee to Judea to the city of David called Bethlehem. He went to his own town. And Hayes mentioned this a little bit last week, but that's what the deal was. Wherever you were from, you had to go back there so they could get a count so they know how much to tax you. So you went back. No matter where you were living, you had to go back to this town because that's where your family was. So Joseph has obviously left Bethlehem and had moved to Nazareth to work or whatever, but he had to go back to Bethlehem to be counted. Why? Because he was descended from the house and the family of David. He went to be registered with Mary, whom he was engaged and who was expecting a child. Again, wedding had not taken place yet, but betrothal was a legal binding agreement, basically. So she was already legally tied to Joseph. So legally, she was part of his family already. They just not had the official wedding ceremony and all that jazz. All right? Then we go on. While they were there, do not miss this. While they were there, the time came for her to deliver her child. Now, every reenactment, for the most part, when you see of this, you get this picture of Mary coming on her donkey, right? And so, oh, I got contractions. Oh, I got contractions. And they stop somewhere and try to find a place while they were there. They were already in Bethlehem. And while they were there, the contractions started coming. They didn't have any Pitocin drip. Couldn't happen. No. The contractions came naturally while they were there. Now, that's important to understand. All right? Let's read on. And she gave birth to her firstborn son and wrapped him in bands of cloth and laid him in a manger because there was no place for them in the inn. And that's the traditional way we've ever heard this story. We've heard this story about the inn. The inn. There's no room in the inn. And we've repeated the story over and over and over again about the inn. But because you're going back to your hometown for the census, would you not be staying with your family? And the answer is yes. You would be staying with your family. While they were there, he was with his family. Then the contractions started coming. But they laid him in a manger because there was no place for them in the inn. Does that make sense? No. Because the word inn in Greek is the word kataluma. Kataluma. No, this isn't something you get on the ocean and sail with. That's not what we're talking about. Kataluma. Now, when we look at the Greek word kataluma, does it mean, is that just another word for inn? No. The actual word means guest room. Guest room. Which means the NIV gets it right, and a couple other translations, not many, But a couple other translations get it right. NIV says that she gave birth to her firstborn son. She wrapped him in cloths and placed him in the manger because there was no guest room available for them. There was no guest room. So everyone in this room needs to pause, ask God for forgiveness, because we've equated the innkeeper as being Judas, Cruella de Vil, Hannibal Lecter, and Darth Vader all rolled up into one. All right, so we're going to have to ask forgiveness for the way we've treated this unknown innkeeper for all these years. So where was Jesus born? Okay, well, we know he was born with some animals, okay, but here's what it could have looked like. It's a possibility. Now, none of us were there, so we don't know exactly, but with a little bit of clues that we have, I'm going to show you a picture of what a house could have looked like when Jesus was born. If you're built on a hill, you could possibly have 2 stories to your place. If you weren't on a hill, it would be flat, but you would have separate places. Let's look at those places. You have an eating, dining area where you would gather for meals and cooking, all this other stuff. But then you'd have 2 other rooms. One of them is obviously where families slept, mom and dad, maybe a couple kids or whatever. But then you have another room called the guest room. So, and this is obviously family with modest means. This is not extravagant. We're pretty sure Joseph's family was not an extravagant family, right? They weren't very wealthy, all right? So they probably had 3 small rooms that was their living quarters, and underneath, if it was a 2-story, or if it's a 1-story, it'd be basically out back, would be where you kept your animals. Now, notice that the model in this picture shows, well, they give as much room to the animals as they do their living. Yeah, that's right. Because animals were their livelihood, right? And they wanted to keep them safe. They wanted to keep them protected, dry, and all this other stuff. Because the animals were prized possessions because you had to make your living that way. All right, so we have 2 separate places. One for the family, one for the animals. Why was she and Joseph put down there? Okay? Well, let's think about this. If you have a huge family and everybody's staying together, there's not a whole lot of room left up here anyway. Okay, let's assume 6 or 7 people might could cram in here, 6, 7 people maybe over here, whatever. So you're still up to about 12 people. That's still not a whole lot of space left over. You may have to sleep a little bit in the living room if you have to, or the dining area, or whatever, cooking area, maybe. But while they were there, there's a good chance that they actually were up here initially, that maybe they had crammed in with everybody else. But when the time came, the contractions started coming, they said there's no room. Why? Well, if you think back, some of you who know your Old Testament history and Old Testament rules and all that stuff, and those of you who have any sense at all, know that when a baby is born, there's going to be blood. Surprise, right? No, it's not a surprise. In fact, the rules and regulations for the Jewish people in this time dictated when a woman was bleeding, then she was considered unclean. And there was a process, obviously, to get declared clean. But here's the deal. If she was to have the child in the guest room, anything that blood touched would be unclean. Basically, this would be uninhabitable for the family. And you already had it crammed with people staying there because of the census. They would not have room for anybody else because that whole area, anything that blood touched, would be unclean. So when the contractions started coming, the family wanted to stay clean. They would have said, hey, you know what? We need you to go downstairs. We need you to go where the animals are. We'll make that as comfortable as possible. Hey, and it'll be private. And it'll be private. Now, all of us know that privacy is a big deal when you're having a child, right? Even with these birthing suites, you know, we still want to have our privacy. Even though there's huge room and you could have a whole lot of people in there, most people do not. when Jordan was born, we had a friend of ours. She didn't know where we were in the process because, again, birthing suite, right? Everything's contained in there. So she dropped by and poked her head in the door. Wasn't a good time, let me say. All right. So my wife said, "No, I'm not going." So she popped her head back out, and things went on. But because my wife wanted her privacy. She was fine with me there most of the time. She was fine with me there. After Jordan was born, she told me to go home. So now it might have been because I was keeping her awake with my snoring, but I don't know. So privacy is a big deal, and the family, if you think about it, the family wanted the couple to have privacy, but the family also wanted to make sure their living quarters stayed clean so they could keep using them. So they said, "Yeah, why don't you just go down with the animals?" That's about the best they could offer under the circumstances. When we think about this night that Jesus was born, and we'll sing this song Friday night, we see Silent Night. No, it wasn't. That was no silent night. Has anybody been through a birth that's been silent? That's what I want to know. Okay, it's not happening. It's not happening because it's just just the whole environment of having a child is just sort of chaotic, and then he's got pain, everything else. There was one dad. He was trying to keep his wife happy. He was trying to keep his wife happy through the labor, and he was telling joke after joke after joke. She didn't laugh once. He was trying his best. She did not laugh once. You know why? It was the delivery. Okay. Yeah, we can. Yeah. So, all right. So it wasn't a silent night. In fact, it was probably a disappointing night. It's a depressing night. It was a hard night, and that's sort of what life can be. So we had this long-awaited Messiah's birth come in the midst of messiness, of disappointment and pain and crowdedness. He came in at that point. He was born not in a hospital, but he was born with a bunch of animals. Couldn't even stay with the rest of the family in the guest room. And not much has changed. Life is still hard. Life is still hard. We just had missionaries just released in Haiti that had been kidnapped. We had people, endless numbers of families and communities just totally disrupted. Loss of life, loss of houses through the tornadoes in Kentucky and Arkansas, Missouri, and all those places. And we've had people that we know personally that are struggling daily because of treatments and recovery from treatments and surgeries and recovering from surgeries and rehab. And we have a constant reminder that we're probably not going to get rid of this virus. So life is still hard. Many of us really can't imagine two young people handling a birth of a child all alone. Because we have nurses, we have midwives, and we have doctors before the child is born, during the actual birth, and then even after, for a couple days in the hospital. And then we have family. We have family that usually can help and surround us and provide respite or whatever we need to provide. We've done that with our son and his wife. But not Mary and Joseph. Did you catch this? The family stayed away from them because they were unclean. At the 8-day mark, we have Jesus 8 days, went and had to be circumcised and stuff, and that's when they named him and all that stuff. He did that. I'm sure he did that. So, but for those early days, they were all alone. Right above them was a full house. Joey and Danny and Jesse, Becky, DJ, Stephanie, and Michelle had no idea what was going on below them. Kimmy said she did, but she was lying, right? Here's how John described Jesus when he came in the world. The true light that gives light to everyone was coming into the world. He was in the world, and though the world was made through him, the world did not recognize him. He came to that which was his own, but his own did not receive him. Jesus was with his own. It was his family. He was with his family. They didn't want to be near him. Wouldn't be the last time that relatives didn't receive him. Mark 6, Jesus left, went to his hometown, accompanied by his disciples. When the Sabbath came, he began to teach in the synagogue, and many who heard him were amazed. Where did this man get these things? They asked. What's this wisdom that's been given him? What are these remarkable miracles he's performing? Isn't this the carpenter? Isn't this Mary's son and the brother of James, Joseph, Judas, and Simon? Aren't his sisters here with us? And they took offense at him. When Jesus entered the world was clueless. His own family was clueless. And even later, when it was obvious, these people even admitted it was obvious he had the wisdom, these miracles, wonderful things. His own family still took offense at him. And we're still taking offense. We are still taking offense at him. I just did a quick search yesterday of school systems and their school calendar. New Jersey School District, up there, one of those districts, and their calendar, school calendar for 2021, 22, all they have on there is days off. There's no mention to Christmas or any other holiday. There's a county system in Georgia who calls this break that we're on right now, winter holidays. In Rhode Island, on their calendar, apparently Yom Kippur is okay, but December 24th through 31, that's called a holiday recess, because everybody loves recess, right? For some reason, that same place in Rhode Island does celebrate Columbus Day. That's a little more weirder, truthfully, in my opinion, they celebrate Columbus Day. In Knoxville system, winter holidays. The world didn't recognize him. The world didn't recognize him. The world still doesn't recognize him. I want to fast forward to end of Jesus' life. End of Jesus' life. Because at the end of his life, the night before he died, guess what? He was able to use a guest room. He was welcomed. Mark and Luke both give us the same story and both use the same word. Look, say to the owner of the house, when he hears the teacher ask, where's my guest room, my kataluma, where I may eat the Passover with my disciples? And then Luke, and go to the owner of the house, the teacher, where is the guest room, the kataluma, where I may eat the Passover with my disciples? So at the end of his life, there was room. There was room. What room do you have? What room do you have? You know, I bet majority of us have transformed the rooms in our house, like we did. Transform the rooms in the house, because you have lights, and you have decorations, and you have Santa and snowmen, nativity, and all these things for the Christmas season. You've transformed your room. You transformed the outside of your house as well. You made it look a little bit different, because you want neighbors to know that you're in the Spirit. You want neighbors to walk by and go, wow, right? And we've driven by some of those communities and some of those streets where we go, wow, they got the Christmas spirit. They got the Christmas spirit. Because it's important to us. We made our list, and we're checking them twice. Not about finding out who's naughty and nice, no, because everybody deserves to be on the nice list, according to AT&T. All right? Everybody deserves to be on the nice list. No, what are we checking our list for? We want to make sure all the stuff is even, right? We don't want one person getting less or more than the other person. So we're making our list because we want to get this right. We have room for Christmas, but do we have room for Christ? Do we have room for Christ? Take a peek into that birthing suite. The family didn't want to be in that room. The world was clueless about what was going on in that birthing suite. the nasty shepherds, they were welcome into that room, that birthing suite, because the light of the world was in that room. And the night before Jesus was died, he was welcomed into a guest room. He was borrowed for a few hours. And I wonder, I think, do some of us still buy into that idea? Jesus, you're welcomed into my guest room. My guest room. Because that means, by very definition, you're a guest and you're not staying. Every now and then we have some friends of my wife's and the lady that works with horses that lives a mile from us. We'll open our house up and let them stay because they're riding horses, they're doing lessons, and everything's real convenient. And this, of course, my wife loves horses and loves anybody that loves horses, right? And so we open up our house, and they stay in our guest rooms. So we have 2 guest rooms because this is not the house my kids grew up in. I just moved there right before the pandemic started. So my kids don't have a room at my house. They can stay in the guest room because that's what it is. They've moved away many years ago, and they don't have a room anymore. It's called a guest room. And we love the hospitality. We've loved welcoming people into our house and entertaining them. But when it's time to go, it's time to go. Thank you for being here. When you leaving, right? You have some of those. You're going to have some of them next weekend. And by the time they get there, when you got to leave, man? No, so. And I think that's the way some of us may handle Jesus. Yeah, you know what, Jesus, you can hang around a few more days. In fact, I'm going to light a candle in this very room on December 24th. You can hang around. Oh, but December 26th, man, I'm packing up this house. I'm packing it, and I'm going to get it back to normal. I'm going to get it back to normal. Is that what we think about Jesus? What room do you have? What room do you have? Let's pray. God, we love singing that song and that phrase, let every heart prepare him room. And we sing it over and over. We'll hear it. And God, I ask that we do more and prepare, that we actually offer Jesus not a guest room, but allow him to move in permanently. You give us this great image in Revelations where Jesus is standing at the door and knocking, and all we have to do is open it. So God, I ask that in these moments that we open that door and we let Jesus in. Not for a couple days, but for our entire lives. In Jesus' name I pray. Amen. Well, I hope a bunch of you will come back Wednesday night for our kids event, and then Friday night be back here. If you can't catch us in person December 24th, we'll be online. We'll be live there for that. So thank you. God bless. Have a great week.